Hey, and welcome to Prod, a Lux Cash podcast. I'm Kai Whiston. Usually on this podcast, we do these sort of scripted long-form essays that I've written. But today we have the honor of sharing this interview with Parker Corey, producer of Injury Reserve and recently By Storm. Parker has been at the forefront of experimental hip-hop and rap music for a long time now, getting his start with Injury Reserve, a group with Nathaniel Ritchie and Stepper J. Groggs, recently transitioning to the By Storm project with Nathaniel and Parker after the tragic passing of Groggs in 2020. I was tapped into his work through I think maybe the first Injury Reserve project, live from the dentist office. It was this sort of very bombastic, maximalist take on jazzy hip-hop instrumentals, with some strange, almost psychedelic, noisy manipulation. And it's been this interesting evolution up until the last Injury Reserve album, By the Time I Get to Phoenix, which features a lot of experimental rock and post-rock sampling, pretty intense, almost IDM manipulations of these sounds, and this immense collage, which feels heavy and raw and perfectly aligns with the themes of the album. And it was an absolute pleasure to get him involved in this conversation, talking about a few things, obviously related to music production, but also collaboration in the modern era, and also live performance setups and, just a plethora of things. It was really great. This is the sort of first interview we've done for the podcast, and it kind of shows in some of the audio quality stuff, but I've tried my best to engineer all of the muffled sounds and bad audio quality, but hopefully the future ones should be better. This was recorded on a video call back in March 2023, and it was fantastic to get Parker on. A huge thank you to him. The new By Storm single is out now, along with an amazing video that Parker directed, which is just beautiful, and stands up to his fantastic production as well. So thank you again, Parker, for your participation in this. And hopefully this will be valuable if you're interested into music production or Injury Reserve or, just music in general. So we're going to take an intimate look at Parker Corey's artistic journey and what's to come.
Am I right in thinking we have like a weird common thread that we both studied like marketing, maybe? Did you study marketing?
For like 3 days. I kind of, that would be like false valor. It was very, it was like 3 days.
Yeah. What led you down that, like, out of interest? Because was it, similar for me, I only did it for like a year or two, but was it just, how come the music, like studying music wasn't the first step? What was that conflict?
I think, so much of like the like academic music, especially like out here, I've noticed like out there, it seems like Guildhall or something like that, they seem like a little bit more open and like even like a DAW, I think, is like new to like a university here. Like it's very behind. Unless I'm sure like NYU probably is a good mute, but that's expensive. That's really expensive. That's really, I never considered that as like a realistic route, because I didn't have like the skill set that most of those programs would like take. Like I can't play like sit down and play an instrument properly. And I feel like that's more what it's geared towards. In hindsight, like I probably would have gone to school for like theoretical, like English or like philosophy type shit, because a lot of that shit interests me now. But where I was coming from, like I didn't even know about that like world really.
Because I mean, now it feels like it's obvious you have so many avenues, obviously through like the injury reserve and music and everything, but like now the music videos as well. Like, I'm going to talk about a bit more like that later, but like, seems like you've kind of dipping your toe in like a lot of stuff. I mean, but it's not necessarily like new, but like it feels like a broader thing as opposed to, yeah, just music or 3 days of marketing or anything like that. I mean, we could talk about the music videos now. I mean, you just did that new one for Oxa, and you've also done a bunch of the injury reserve music videos. Like, how, I suppose, in relation to music, how important is that visual side for you when you're creating or when you're sort of finishing it up? Like, how much does that play a part in the creating of the music? And then, yeah, when does it come in, I guess?
Definitely try to come in with that after, because I would hate for it to like influence this. Like sometimes you see songs where like they only work with the music video.
Yeah.
Then like someone's listening to them like outside of the music video, and it's like this isn't really that good.
Yeah.
And so I would hate to like fall into that. So we try to bring that in after, and like I've even like just recently just opened up to the idea of like toying with the song, like the sound of the song a little bit in the video as opposed to like the record version. Like doing like a slightly like 20 seconds extended beginning of Outside on the last video. Like that was like for a long time, like I wouldn't do anything like that because I like wanted to keep the song like,
yeah,
like pure or something. But now it's a little more opened up for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes you get when there's like I can't remember which rapper I saw that was like doing a live show, but he was basically someone that was coming out to do like a one-off song as part of someone else's show, and like you could hear the DJ, whoever the DJ was, had like the YouTube rip like version of the track with like the extended. I like the idea of that, of just outing the YouTube rippers. You know, it was a nice pointless exercise in destruction.
Sometimes it's better with the video, like audio. Like there's like I can't think of the name of the song, but there's like a wiki song.
Yeah.
Where like in the video, like they like for one like line in the song, they cut to like just like the camera mic audio of him like rapping a cappella in the apartment, and then the whole song comes back in, and it's like it sounds so good, but it's not on like the release version of the song.
Sometimes the YouTube rip is where the heart and soul is. But I just want to talk about how, I guess, the range of the injury reserve stuff from the very beginning up until, you know, the last record, which I really see as you guys' you know, opus in a way, so I will probably keep talking about that one because, you know, it's really struck a chord in me. But you talk about, like, I guess the importance of taking risks with the injury reserve stuff from yourself, but I mean, as the group a whole, like, I mean, for me at least, each sort of album has like a quite clear like intention with sound or concept or all of these things. Is it where do you think that comes from? That the wanting to divert and take the risk?
I think initially, like, we kind of gravitated towards that just from like probably like a competitive aspect. Yeah, I don't know, just trying to like sound more interesting or like more forward thinking than other things. But I think what really opened it up on the last one was it shifted from like a competitive thing, although that's still there. Like everyone wants to show someone something and just have them be like, whoa, like this. But I think it shifted from all about that to like I don't know, like the stakes are just realizing like the grander stakes of art, like needing to like assert its like difference, I guess.
I think something that's like often overlooked in like a producer vocalist collaboration aspect is like how the little sort of like the lines between the role players kind of get blurred, right? Where you'll get like a producer jumping in and being like, hey, you know, this lyric would sound better like this, or, vocalist going in like that. What do you think, makes that good partnership?
Part of that I think just comes with like just time, like getting to the point where you trust each other, that even when you're like not seeing it, like because both your names are on it, like obviously that person isn't trying to like sabotage anything or like do something just for like, I mean, some people do still, like early on, they're still thinking about what have I contributed to this, like they're trying to fulfill like how they'd feel as a part of the thing, when it doesn't really matter when it goes out. Because once it goes out, people will come up with weird narratives about who did what.
Yeah.
People, you can't care about that. You just got to be happy with like the work itself. And then on the other side of things, I think what really, really makes it work well, just like physically, is everyone involved getting like as in tune with the just technical aspect too. Like Nathaniel like records himself. He like every like few months, like when the vocals come back, there will be like a new plugin involved, like definitely like a progression of like learning. You know, at some point that blurs into production, like how you're treating your vocals. Like when you pan a vocal, that's like a production decision. Like the more and more that blurs, I think it just gets better. It gets faster. Everyone's like, I don't know. It's like being able to play like the same instrument together, and it's like very delayed time, but as long as you're working with like the same tools, like you're kind of speaking like it's like its own language that you're like learning, and you're developing like your own like dialect of that language, like within the band, I guess. If he sends something at like a certain tempo and then I throw it over something else, like we'll be able to be like, oh, did these sound like too wrong for the beat now because what we like it over, like we hear what we like, but it's also too wrong. Like, do we think like this verse could even work at this tempo now? I don't know. Like, you know, like being able to have those discussions is important.
Have you always had that freedom to like work remotely, of just like, have you ever had like that? I mean, some people are so hell-bent of like, we got to be in the same room to catch the vibe kind of thing. Have you always been this freedom of like sending things to each other and just like kind of like seeing how it bounces off, and just do you find like experimenting in like a remote setting versus like a group setting, of like physical group setting?
I mean, for a long time, it was more in a group setting. Like we lived together in Altadena for a few years. We had like this like studio in the sunroom, and like the living room was right next door. And so pretty much like it was like 8 people in this one like big house. So if you were working on something, like not only was it like us 3 could hear it, but like 5 of our friends could hear it as well. So that was like, I mean, that affects like what you're doing mentally for sure. Yeah. And I know Nate is like, I think like that's why he likes recording himself, is he can try things like really weird and sound, I'm sure he like embarrassing, like no context, like hearing someone just like in the room making these noises, but like obviously he hears what he's trying to put together. You do have to like trial and error it and like, you know, like piece it to, at least the way we work. It's stuff that maybe like jazz musicians were able to do like on the fly together and more reactive. But the way like working in Ableton works and finding what we're trying to find, like there's more embarrassing moments.
I mean, I think that's kind of like, I think that's kind of like relieving too, especially because that's just the most common form of collaboration now, is like that remote like feeling. And I think some people, I think you hear when it's this mesh of different environments and obviously different collaborators, but they're all sort of, when everyone's in the same room, everyone sort of had a similar day, or, is it a similar feeling and that kind of stuff, that you can have like that clash of environment and, whatever could be going on over here in the day is like plays into this thing that could be completely unexpected. I think it's like, it definitely births like a new and a different approach, an interesting approach. And yeah, like it's also just how everyone is collaborating at the moment.
Definitely never finished a record without like getting into the studio together and like iron. Like there comes a point where it's just so slow to work remotely. Like you could sit and talk about like, no, at like 109, not like, well, no, like that's 108. Like if you, and it's like in on like one computer and you go back and forth and like you can nail it much quicker sometimes too. Usually I let like the really like exploratory stage is moved like more remotely and like kind of on our own like time schedules and stuff. And then finishing the record is like time to come together. And yeah.
Well, while we're on the subject of like finishing records, am I right? You mixed and mastered this with someone called Zero, is that right? What was that process like? I mean, I kind of, I have some, not too much sympathy because it's like a crazy record to work on, but just handing in a record like this to a mixer and being like, here we go, make it sound good. Like, what was that? Were you giving any references? What was the sort of feedback like? How did you even come in contact? Yeah.
So that was something we were very conscious of too. We were like, we didn't even know like what the better version of this necessarily sounded like. Like, obviously we're hearing it in our heads a little different because we've worked so intimately with it. So part of like a good mix is just like making it so other people like first listen will hear it that way, I think. Yeah. So we were just very self-conscious about like, this is weird. We don't even know what a good mix is going to sound like. And we kind of decided like, we think this guy could do it because he's mixed some pretty out there stuff. He makes his own music that's like really out there and incredible too. And it's out there, but it also sounds like so hi-fi. Like it sounds like so just like right in like present, like the sound is incredible.
Yeah.
We reached out, we were like, it works with him if he's down to mix it, and like we do these 2 like trial songs to see like how it like what comes of it, then and we like it, then we'll go with him. If not, like we're just gonna have to like mix and master it ourselves and like deal with that. So we got this studio for like a week, I think, and we were in there basically trying to like finalize and like rough mix and master it ourselves. But then like the last few days we were there, Zero came by and we played him Superman. Well, I mean, we played him the whole thing, I think, but we asked him like Superman that and Smoke Don't Clear, I think. Like, are you down to like give these a shot? Like, I think these 2 will help us figure out like the fastest if this is like the right thing to do. Because Superman that is like the pop song of the album.
Right.
So it like the best mix. And then
I just love how you frame that. That's super edgy. That's super interesting. I'm gonna listen. After this, I gotta listen to that again as the pop song of the
album. And then Smoke Don't Clear was like probably the most like fucked up like sound design. So like let's see what the mix is able to make of that. So it was like those 2, were good references. So and part of like asking to do Superman that as well was we had the stems like in front of us, but a lot of the like cool effect stuff that was happening to the beat was done like to the 2-track of the beat because it just didn't sound the same doing it to like all the stems at once, like some of the like automated stuff. And I like tried my hardest to like take the stems apart and then like apply the automation to each stem, but like group them and like able to give him like separated tracks so we're still in and just none of it sounded like as good as like the 2-track. So we were like, is it okay? Like, can you mix this to the 2-track with like all these effects on it? He was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And that was the one where he sent that back a few days later and was like, not a few days, but however soon he sent it back, he somehow like, because the 2-track was pretty like compressed, he used like a transient shaper, like the SSL one or something, like the SSL plugin one, and like just like reopened it. Like the drums like opened up and they were so loud again, and it was like less compressed. It was like, I hadn't used anything like that. It was like shocking. And so we were like, okay, like he's the guy, like we're going to do it for sure.
Just hearing the secondhand experience of like going, because I've just been in that situation so many times of having like the most broken, like, yeah, like free stems that are actually like many sounds in it, and then like you're trying to like EQ your way out of like situations. I felt a secondhand relief from you just hearing like, yeah, it was 2-step and it just worked out. I'm like, this is a dream. This is like a producer's fucking dream.
Well, because I had everything with like all the separate ones, but it just didn't sound as good. And it's like at a certain point, you just got to do it the wrong way. If it's not, you just know innately like it's not as good.
For sure, man. I made a career out of doing it the wrong way. While we're talking a little bit about like plugins and that kind of stuff, like how deep is your search into? I mean, I know your dive into samples is as deep as they come, but it's in plugins and that kind of stuff, and lewd techniques and stuff. How often are you looking for new shit? And what kind of stuff have you tapped into recently? Of like,
I haven't really picked up a whole lot recently. I mean, there's like that really like lossy like simulators, I guess, a little bit, but I haven't. So far, it's only been like ear candy stuff, nothing like really strong, like this is the base of the song. But on the last album, like a lot was like, there's like that like manipulator plugin.
Yeah.
And I think it's mostly for vocals, but the smear channel on it, that's really fun, like the smear and the width.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is at the SS San Francisco. That was the track that made me go down a rabbit hole trying to hear what that fucking vocal sound was. And yeah, that sent me crazy trying to find that shit. I was like, the
smear on like a bass guitar is like so good. It's like, or really on the smear on like 808s is like, I want to explore that more. It's fucked. You can create some stuff that just sounds bad on like the wrong speaker system.
Yeah.
But there's also some sounds there that are weird, and you might be able to like figure them out enough to like stabilize them. I don't know. But there's that one. I think a lot of the drums were like, I like this like process of just like sticking a break in the granulator plugin, kind of like free form, like fucking around for like 5 minutes, just like playing it, like, and shifting like the playback speed and the rate that it's like chopping at or whatever. And just get this like really like pushed and pulled, like ridiculous track of still like a dusty-ish like break.
Yeah.
And find like some cool loops in there, chop it out and like pull it out. And then you like 80% like quantize that to like a 16th note. And then you do like the retime to like pitch or whatever. You get some weird drum sounds out of that. That's what the By Storm drums are like, probably like one of my favorite things I've done, just because they're barely drums, and like I've never heard drums that sound like that before, and that's what I think that's what that is like a pretty extreme version of that. But you can still hear like the little bit of like a drum kit inside. It's nice, yeah.
It's weird. Those are always the ones that stick. It's never like the heaviest, or like it's always like the weird, like just the collection of sounds that like are doing the thing that they're filling the space that it's trying to do, if it's drums or like an instrument stuff, but it's just so like far out from like what his original purpose would be. Like, that's the best fucking feeling. I also want to talk about maybe this has some sort of play in as well. This sort of the now I think it's almost like an urban legend. This like DJ set that everything, all the inspiration from like the records kind of came from. Not all the inspiration. I mean, through my research, feels like there's people put layers and layers onto this, like the legend of this set. Maybe talk about, for those who don't know, just exactly this, a little bit about. I mean, you've talked about it to death, I'm sure, but the little bit of the story of this DJ set and what was it that you took away from it exactly?
Let's see. I'm gonna try to clear up some of it without rehashing. I'm sure someone like Injury Reserve, like Stockholm, they'll find plenty of the existing lore, I guess. But I mean, the short of it was that we were on a tour, and we had like we had like 3 or 4 like atomic strobe lights like that we were bringing with us everywhere, and those are like very power hungry. It's just like there's a certain amount of volts and circuits and watts and amps, and you got to be mindful of, because we like the first night of the tour we blew like the power in the venue, and then we gotta like, so yeah, it just takes like a certain mindfulness, and it was even more difficult there because now you're dealing with like 240 volt versus like 120 volt here.
Fucking hell, man.
And so we're doing that at like a lot of these venues, like, okay, how many circuits do you have? Okay, can I get 1 circuit here, 1 circuit here? Yeah. And I mean, we're not playing like big rooms where it shouldn't be a problem. We're playing like a lot of like 200 cat like rooms, but they're like proper like music venue rooms. And we get to this show in Stockholm, and it is truly like just like a flat floor in kind of like a long hallway, like bar area in the back of this like Italian restaurant. So we're like, fuck already. They had like CDJs set up, and we're like, why are there CDJs here? No one on this tour using CDJs. Like, you just saw a rap show and you're just like, all right, here's some CDJs. Like, I don't. So we pretty quickly came to the realization that none of the lights were going to be able to get plugged in. The speaker system was like, just like the classic like house show setup of just like 2 PAs. And like a little like mixing board like on a like bar table in the back. And I mean, the guy who was mixing is actually really nice. He's the one who recorded it, which is the only reason that recording of it exists, which is also out there. People want the lore. So anyways, we came to the decision we're not gonna be able to do this, like the show that we've been touring this whole time. And we I don't know, we felt a little uncomfortable just like playing the same set, but it being like such a reduced version of the show. And the CDJs were there, so we were like, fuck it, the show was already free, I think. So we were like, fuck it, like, we're just gonna do like our idea of like a DJ set. And so we started like pulling up songs we liked, we were pulling up like beats, and like Nate had like his like PC Helicon just trying to find like fun vocal effects he wanted to play with. And I had the Superman that beat. I'd had it for a while. I think I made it like right around this time our album before that was like coming out, because we were in the UK. We played that like Brighton festival, and we were hanging out with Jockstrap, and Georgia was like, oh, I have this like other band you should check out. And I went to like one of their sets, and I think Athens, France was like the only song they had out at the time. And we like went to a studio a few days later and just kind of like threw that together while we were out there, like hanging out with them. So I'd had that beat for a long time, and I'd been like pushing it. I think I even sent it to like JPEG at one point. I sent it to hip hop saying like, oh, I think Danny Brown would be good on this. Like, I was like really pushing this beat. And I guess we've had a disagreement. Nate said that he did like write something to it already, and he like showed it to me and Groggs, and we were kind of just like, eh. And he's like, that's what the song is. Like, he says that he showed it to us before. I don't remember it, but I believe it. But anyway, so we're in this bar in Stockholm, and that he does, I play the beat and he does that over it, like with the auto tune and the mic and everything. I'm like, that's crazy. And so we ended up performing it there. And that's where like a lot of the like live effects that then we made sure to include on the record that made it a lot more difficult to mix later on. That's where we like found those effects, was from doing it live the first time. And yeah, we just had the live recording as a demo when we got home from the tour. And we were kind of like, okay, we need to make this like a good song. We need to make this like a studio recording. We need to figure. And once we figured that out, like we were like, okay, this is the sound of the album. And the rest kind of like flowed out from there. Because we were like, this song is crazy. Like that was like our foundation point. It wasn't like I was like, give me the Athens sample and like put in drums. That I'm not able to work like that.
Yeah, I think it's in. I mean, thanks again for clearing it up, and I'm sure it's like, yeah, the 100th time you've had to explain it around. But like, I think what catches people onto, makes it so interesting, is this idea of just like, you know, I mean, first of all, it's like a moment, as if it was in a story or something like that. Everything comes together and it flows out, and this eureka thing catches from the album. Like there's that, but there's also something interesting to something you don't really see in electronic or hip hop or music production, of like sort of the live jam then becoming like the recording. I mean, I think it's kind of typical in band world where you have like, you know, people messing around at sound check and then like they have a little riff and boom, it develops into this thing. The idea of music production, you know, and studio recording production or whatever, is this very like quiet, alone, sort of nerdy on Ableton for days and days. It's like trying to craft things. There's some romance to that, but there's a lot. I think that's what's drawing people to the story, maybe so much as this idea that it kind of fell out of this improvised thing, like, you know, flow state, in a way that maybe on your first listen to music, you're like, how did it come out of this? Like, this came from like it just fell from the sky kind of thing. Why do you think people are so into that lore?
No, I mean, from the band standard, it would probably be like, wow, a lot of like prep work that went into that. For us, it did feel like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Like, we have some here. Like, I mean, I had like been pretty into the beat for a long time before that, but that was the first time I was like, oh, we have a song here. So it did feel like that to us. But I mean, people love like a good story. There's a certain like virtuoso like thing attached to like music that people really like to like lean into. It's the same reason why like just having instruments on stage like makes a lot of people like more like receptive to a live performance. And I'm not like, there's plenty of laptop shows that do suck. Like, I get that, but there's also plenty of ways to make like electronic music like tactile and like receptive to like jamming, and we try to do that.
Very quickly, you mentioned just about the live setup. You mentioned the TC Helicon, whatever. Some of the recordings of those live shows, it's like, feels like things are being jammed and mangled to a point where they feel like so much more intense in a great way. It must be like an absolute joy when you're like, what's the live setup at the moment, like equipment wise? Did you just come off a tour? Like,
a few months. Although, and that was like pretty long. Like, we were off and on like every other month since like October 21.
Yeah.
Basically like a full year, I guess. So like every other month was like on the road, I think. But yeah, like we've figured it out. Like, we have it down to like a pretty like exact science. Not exact, but we're pretty like, we even bring our own tables. Like, we have this like giant Pelican that we bring our stands in. Especially the stands are crucial when people have the virtuoso thing. Like, they see a laptop on a table, a lot even more. So we got to at least put it on like some nice like drum stand.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Nate has his setup on one laptop running Ableton. That's basically, he has vocals going into the TC Helicon as like technically we call that the drive vocal. Even so, there's the TC Helicon is there for a lot of effects. We just don't like the auto tune in the TC Helicon. It's like, It's not good enough. So then he also is running vocals through Ableton just for auto-tune, to get like the real Antares like sound. He has like I don't know, it's one of those like Akai like little samplers that's just like standalone. And I think it has like mostly like vocal chops that he like ad libs of his own that he likes and like can play while we're doing some like of the weirder stuff. And then on mine, I just have like a session in Ableton running on my laptop, and that's hooked up to like the push too. Lets me do like 90% of it without touching the laptop. There's this one like plugin that Jasper did for Macs that's like a tap tempo echo, tap tempo thing that I mapped to the echo sometimes, and it doesn't work with the push. So sometimes I'm like tapping that out my track pad to like get. Yeah, it's mostly just controlling it from the push. It's an Ableton session, and then in the session I have like one track for beats, a second track for beats, so I can like jog between the two. And it's like one, the next song on the other, the next song on the first one, the next song on the second, you know. And then an acapella track, and then another track that is controlling all the lights. And that's like just going to this little like USB DMX box, and it has like automated programming for the lights basically. So they're always like perfectly with the Ableton session.
You're running the lights and the tracks all out of the same, just one out of the same laptop.
Yeah.
Does that terrify you? as a fellow laptop live person, I'm just constantly just like, after one or two bad experiences, you're just constantly waiting for everything to like fuck up.
Yeah, it's usually not too, but like I've had like maybe like a couple of crashes, but like across like 100, 200 shows, like not too bad. Like I think those are more rare occurrences than they are like overloading the system. The plugins, I have like 3 tracks with plugins on them. They're mostly like native, like using the Ableton EQ, using like pitch hack is Max. Like it's mostly either Max or native Ableton plugins. So, like it hasn't been too bad. It hasn't been too choppy.
You mentioned Jogstrap before, and I think there's like with Injury Reserve, there's like a weird sort of crossover into some of the kind of like the experimental electronic world. I mean, I think was it a couple of weeks ago, you just put out the record with Flume. Or that was like years ago.
Pretty old, but it did well. Yeah.
Also doing stuff with like Jam City and Dylan Brady and stuff. Where do you think that overlap is, and also just like any experiences that stick out from with those names, like the producer collaboration within Injury Reserve? What is that? How does that function? How does that feel? How does that flow?
I mean, I think like working with a lot of those people, a lot of it's obviously just by like chance. It's a mixture of like being by chance, but also just being like music fans at the same time, and like stuff that we think is like, oh, this is kind of sick actually. But the Jogstrap thing, that's like we were playing this like it was like Iceland Airwaves, that like festival out there. They were like we were playing the same like bar there on the same day, and we showed up for our sound check, and I think there was some miscommunication, so they were kind of taking our sound check time, and we had to like wait around to use their sound check time. We were going to London after like that festival to like meet with people and like try to choose, like it was when we were on the label deal, so we were like choosing, I don't know, they're always like introducing you to people, and their managers kind of came up to like Nick or I, and they were like, hey, like you're Injury Reserve, right? And we were like, yeah. And she's like, oh, like we're supposed to be like meeting with you in London in a few days, like. And we were like, oh, hi. And so we were talking to them, and they introduced us to the band. We were watching the sound check, and we were like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. And then we checked out the music. Yeah, and then I think we ended up like on that like short, like a couple days later, like we all went over to like Taylor's apartment and showed him like the self-titled album that was like easily done, but like this would have been like November 2018, I think. So yeah, just by chance, and then liking what they're doing and hanging out, and then just building like a music relationship, I guess.
So it feels pretty organic, but yeah, that's
well,
I mean, considering now and everything that sort of Jump Shot's been up to now since, it's very cool to see both of you sort of like
really late, but cool to see. It's crazy to took off from that. Like, it was one of those things that was frustrating for a long time. Like, why? Like, they're falling a little bit on deaf ears, but
yeah.
one, I don't know. I guess things are just later.
I mean, that tends to be the thing with like experimental stuff. Sometimes it's just like, you know, I wouldn't use the phrase too far ahead, but just, yeah, just the climate just it doesn't match up with whatever you're doing. And it's just like, yeah, it's a funny thing. What about Dylan Brady and they get that Gex remix is fucking bonkers. He was on Jailbreak the Tesla, I think. Yeah, what is that relationship like? He's a funny guy.
I'm trying to remember how we got like in contact. I think it was just like mutual friends.
Is this mutual friends like in LA or like through music stuff or?
I don't. It might have been. There's this guy who was from Phoenix. Well, he's a producer like Y2K. I think we like just people being from Phoenix. Like then when you're in LA, you're like, I remember you from the house, you know, like, and you end up, I think it might have been maybe through him. I don't remember exactly. But for whatever reason, like, we were like somewhat friendly with Dylan. And then he came out when we were starting that self-titled album. We like rented this house in like Flagstaff, like this big like cabin, and kind of just like invited like everyone we liked to like come work, that we like knew. And he came out for like a few days, I think, or maybe like a week. I don't know, a little bit. And he like brought a bunch of his stuff and we were just working there. Yeah. And then that song, that was the collaboration where it's like, we're pretty like open to whatever really. Like we hate like bringing people into something and like wanting like, can we get this from you? Like this thing you do that for us. Like it's like, you hate when people expect that of us too.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I mean, that must happen to you like all the fucking time.
Yeah. And so like that one, like he had a thumb instrument and he was like playing it. I think he did.
Oh, that's a recording?
Well, no, I think he did like kind of the Tokyo Drift-ish line, like a joke. And then Nate was like, oh, we got to get that. And I think Nate might have even done it off like an iPhone, like a Apple like corded mic. So it's like really like noisy and just, which probably makes it sound more like a sample, but like just like a headphone, like he like put it up to the thing and they like recorded it real quick. And that's like Dylan's production on that, which is very backwards. Like obviously there's a lot of like Sophie sounds on that beat, like just like kind of PC music in general, like really coursing through that, but then it's cut with this like very like dusty feeling noise ridden hand played thumb instrument. And it's like that part is actually the part Dylan did, and the stuff Dylan is like super known for and related with is like the stuff that we kind of already had on that song. So yeah, I mean we're like whatever song ends up being.
No, I remember that. I mean that was such a poor producer nerds like me. That was such like a moment I feel like when that came out. It was just like, yeah, I think it's a lot of it's to do with the contrast of sounds, but also just sort of hearing it did spin the context of like Sophie's sounds in a like hip hop context. I think I might be wrong, but it was before Sophie was doing all the stuff with Staples and stuff. So it was like,
yeah, I feel like for us, we were like, when she was doing stuff for Vince Staples, it was definitely like Vince Staples rapping over her production. Like it wasn't quite, I don't know. I feel like it was just like, she's also like, just like such a like crazy sound designer. Like, and so I think our approach was like, I don't like it, like honestly, like in rap music, there's like a lot of using like drum, you know, like drums famous. Like the chop snare is famous. You know, that's a whole snare sound, and like it is like this producer made it, and the pack like circulated, and it got used all over. And it's like when they think they figured out like the Metro Boomin like 808 once a long time ago, and that one was really get the exact. But people like the file names almost becomes like a meme, you know, and like. I think we were just like approaching it like that, but we're still like, oh, we're going to use samples. We're going to, you know, it's not going to be like all synth driven. It's not going to be, yeah. I feel like some of the reception people want, like people receive it one side or the other. I know that there's people who like think it's almost like cheap and like ripping on her sound, but it's clearly like, I don't know, like introducing like jazz samples to it and trying to make those work together is, I'm not going to pretend like I made the snare sound, of course. That would be ridiculous. But the mashup is what we were going for there, yeah. The Splice thing has made it all the way. I feel like there's way more people producing. Splice makes people feel, which is, it's good, but there's also like that like famous like beginner, like false bravado, like false I know everything. Like it's like way more prevalent with this stuff, I guess.
Did you hear the, I think it was like Spotify, they announced like they announced there's some like trailer video where they basically have like some TikTok feed now, Spotify or something, you know, so gross. But like the soundtrack to it is like so crazy, like spliced, but like none of it is like, you know, it's kind of like avant-garde. This could be like John Cage in a way, but it's like none of it is like in the same key, and it's like the most like corrosive, like, so you gotta check that out. It's, you know, yeah, I think the Splice is definitely, you know, I think it's leaving its mark in, and I like to think maybe it's just a little bit of a phase. It might be the same when there's fucking like, you know, AI song starters which sound like brilliant. I think, you know, it could go through like a little phase thing that's like, you know, I'm just kind of going to drag everything from the front page and then, you know, see what, you know, but the problem is you're dealing with, you know, if you're dragging everything from the front page of Splice, you're dealing with also all the other thousands of people who might be doing like the same shit that day. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but there's also just like great things on there. So it's you know, it's a balance. You know, maybe a broad question of, since like the beginning of your production career with Live at the Dentist Office, and like kind of had like this sort of raw lo-fi sounds. I mean, it was sort of like tongue-in-cheek references of like jazz rap and stuff, like lyrically, or maybe it was on the one, you know, reference to that. If you looked at the scope of, you know, of everything with Injury Reserve, how would you say your production has like developed personally? Like, how do you see your approach has changed from like your earlier stuff? Would you say, like, or I mean, it's never like so straightforward, but
I mean, definitely like when you say like the tongue-in-cheek jazz rap line, like is like a perfect signifier for like the only like real constant has been like a restlessness for sure. Yeah, like an extreme restlessness. And kind of every time someone like there's like a consensus that like this is what it is, being like no, like it's this, you know, and that line being like, yeah, the first album that we put out, or like mixtape, I guess, whatever you want, being something that could be labeled as jazz rap, and that being the first thing to like get any recognition in us, and then the first song we put out after that recognition to be This Is Not That, kind of like a perfect encapsulation of where it's gone since then. Just like, but it's not that, you know. Yeah, like a refusal to be like pinned down to like a certain understanding, I guess, has been like constant. The big change beyond that has just been like getting way more comfortable with like the technique of it, getting more intimate with it. Like if I go back and hear some of the other stuff, like it sounds like so straightforward, so like by the numbers. But at the time it was exciting and weird. Like, oh, what is this? Like, I don't know. This is crazy. Like, oh, I figured out how to make like the 808 like hit that hard. Like that's wow. Like I did that. That's crazy. But now like, yeah, that feels like, you know, a little cheap. It feels like you know, like clocking in for the job to like be to like just make a drum hit that way. And so just looking for like different things, you know, like that way. This is a little, I don't know. I don't want to.
Oh, come on. You can't do me like that.
Have you ever watched like the Kenny Beats like Twitch streams?
Yeah.
So there's one thing that like bugs me like beyond belief, and that is that I watched some of like the YouTube uploads of them, and I realized he never, maybe sometimes, but for the most part, which is like a lot of what I'm doing while making a beat, he never presses undo. Like he never does anything to like see what it'll sound like and like be like, oh no, let me go back and let me work. Like he always is like, now the next step is, and then does it. Like he like knows what to do, like does it. And that's like, to me, like the complete opposite of like the point of making music. And I feel like that helps describe, I guess, what has become like more like, this is what it is. Like, this is what I'm trying to do, is like not be that, like not be like, okay, I know what I'm doing now, and like sit down and put all the pieces together. Like avoiding that is like the whole thing. And just the more and more you do, the more you get to know things, the more difficult but also exciting it becomes to try to do that, to try to avoid doing like the same thing and feeling like you're just like phoning it in, and like satisfied with creating what you already thought would sound good.
There's definitely something to this, like a disruption to the workflow in any form. It's like, you know, it's like picking up a new synth or something, even though like it can make the same sound, or there's an effect that can do the same sound. It will be laid out differently in a way that will, you know, disrupts what you're trying to do and like fucks with it a little bit in the way like it's just a new result kind of thing. Yeah. But that's funny you mentioned the Kenny Beats doesn't use undo. I'll
Plain judgment, honestly. I mean, you know how to use undo. That's all you.
Maybe you're just perfect every time, you know. That's also a possibility. That could be cool. I want to just finish things up by, I think there's something interesting with injury reserve. I think in general, groups are kind of this thing that are slowly, you know, not dying out, but they're you know, going from complete band world of the 20th century and how it's kind of evolved now, and you see all these sort of more individual artists and stuff. What advice would you give to, you know, producers or artists, whatever, that are looking to like find collaboration and collaborative spaces like in 2023 and find those people that share the similar mindsets and that kind of thing? What would you advise to them to in find those things, and also just like in general the difference in work and what this should be expected for people that are like trying to venture into that kind of world?
I feel like a lot of the like solo stuff, I mean, even like the prevalence of like solo artists is probably like more about like making money. Like for other people too, like that's probably why they're so prevalent, is because other people know that it's easier and they can make more money off like one person that is like marketable and like easier to control. It's easier to find someone and you're like, okay, I get them to work with this producer, and this producer, and that'll be like, I mean, that's kind of like the A&R, like signing a new artist, like that's what they do. Okay, now you're working with X, Y, Z, like we got sessions for you, you know? So it's probably just easier on them than like investing in like something that's already trying to like figure itself out and like self-contained amongst itself. Like it's all these new people. And I feel like people kind of maybe have internalized that a bit, because it seems like even when you do see like groups and stuff, they're often like already semi-splintered. Like it's somewhat rare now to see a group that like takes itself as a group like very seriously. Like there will be group projects, but then there's like, here's my solo album, here's like the thing I did. And that can be cool, but I think sometimes taking the group thing like very seriously is like it keeps you from seeing yourself as like an individual within the group, and like the band is like its own like organic entity, which is much more complicated, and complication like makes stuff like really interesting sometimes. Like, and I think that's all it comes down to is like maybe people shy away from the discomfort of like how complicated it is navigating like a couple different people, like having to like agree on something that's already as complicated as like making a piece of art. But like figuring out complicated things with other people is kind of like the whole point of being around. So comfortable as that is, like
when you tear it down, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so I guess that leaning into that is good. Yeah, it's healthy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to put out to say? Here's one more thing.
Yeah, we have like I don't know when this is supposed to like come out really. Maybe edit this out. But if it has, then I don't care. Yeah, I mean, we're like, basically we don't feel comfortable like pushing the like same name forward. It's just the two of us. We have like this one song. It's like pretty like indulgent, like 6-minute thing. And we're going to like do this like transit. We actually just shot it, and I think we shot it like 5 days ago, and I think I got like the edit. Like I'm like pretty happy with it. Maybe it'll be like a few little tweaks. And it's basically gonna be like this transitional thing. It's like a video for By Storm, the song off the last album, and then a new video by the band name is gonna be By Storm without the E.
All right, nice.
Will be like a first single from like the new name. So it's like this like blurry transitional state.
I was about to say, I was literally about to make the lame. I caught myself. I was going to say it was like a Phoenix thing. And then I was like, that is like that is so bad. And I can't believe my mind went there. But yeah, this is like Ashes from the Phoenix. I think you put mind and heart at ease. Because, I mean, I was always worried to ask. I was, to be like, is more music going to come from you two? Like, especially, I think that was the consensus as well from like a lot of the reviews from the last record was like, please don't let this be the last one. But yeah, that seems like a really tasteful way of handling it. And yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. That's kind of like, a good avenue of that. But that's great, man. Well, thank you so much.